Hello everyone, Jonathan Schlack, EAS&Weather here, with a severe weather update for the Day 1 Outlook. I don't apologize for my congestion, I still have a little bit of a cold, but I don't feel as bad as yesterday, so I'm back to the video today, but just bear with me because I'm still a little congested, but I'm able to work through it. But anyway, we've an enhanced risk for severe weather today that goes across central and eastern South Dakota, far north central Nebraska, the far northwestern corner of Iowa, central and southern Minnesota, and west central Wisconsin. We have two areas where we have a slight risk for severe weather today. One slight risk area covers northeastern Wyoming, the far northeastern corner of Colorado, much of Nebraska, much of South Dakota, the far southeastern corner of North Dakota, northern Iowa, far southeastern and north central Minnesota, most of Wisconsin, well actually all of Wisconsin pretty much, the western part of the panhandle of upper Michigan, west central Michigan as well. We have another slight risk area over here that goes across the very far extreme southeastern corner of Vermont, south central New Hampshire, most of Massachusetts, the eastern half of Connecticut, very far eastern part of Long Island, and all of Rhode Island. We have two margin risk areas today as well. One margin risk area covers southeastern Montana, most of Wyoming, eastern Colorado, western Kansas, west central and southeastern Nebraska, northwestern South Dakota, southeastern North Dakota, northern Minnesota, central Iowa, most of Michigan, northern Illinois, far northern Indiana, and the very far extreme northwestern corner of Ohio. And we have another margin risk area today that covers southwestern and far southeastern Pennsylvania, the eastern part of the West Virginia Panhandle, northeastern Virginia, Washington, D.C., all of Maryland, all of Delaware, all of New Jersey, eastern New York State, including New York City and Long Island, western Connecticut, western Massachusetts, all of Vermont, all of New Hampshire, and southwestern Maine. Today there is a 5% chance of an isolated tornado that covers southeastern South Dakota and southwestern Minnesota. And we have a 2% chance of an isolated tornado that covers parts of central and northeastern South Dakota, far northeastern Nebraska, northwestern Iowa, southern half of Minnesota, and west central Wisconsin. Going to the wind now, we have a 30% chance of damaging wind gusts of 58 miles per hour higher today that covers central and eastern South Dakota, far north central Nebraska, far northwestern Iowa, southern half Minnesota, and west central Wisconsin. And we have two areas where we have a 15% chance of damaging wind gusts of 58 miles per hour higher today. We have one that covers northeastern Wyoming, the far northeastern corner of Colorado, most of Nebraska, most of South Dakota, the far southeastern corner of North Dakota, northern Iowa, northern and far southeastern Minnesota, all of Wisconsin, the western part of the upper panhandle, the western part of the panhandle of upper Michigan, and west central Michigan. Now, if you look at the black dashed areas, the black dashed area encompasses parts of central and eastern South Dakota, north central Nebraska, far northwestern Iowa, southern half of Minnesota, and west central Wisconsin. The black dashed area is where we have a 10% chance of seeing hurricane force wind gusts of 74 miles per hour or higher. We have another area where we have a 15% chance of damaging wind gusts. Don't want this update on me. There we go. We have another area where we have a 15% chance of damaging wind gusts of 58 miles per hour higher today that covers the far southeastern corner of Vermont, southern New Hampshire, most of Massachusetts, the eastern half of Connecticut, the far eastern part of Long Island, and all of Rhode Island. And we have two areas where we have a 5% chance of damaging wind gusts of 50 miles per hour higher today. One that covers southeastern Montana, most of Wyoming, eastern Colorado, western Kansas, west central and east central Nebraska, northwestern South Dakota, southern North Dakota, central Iowa, northern Minnesota, northern Illinois, northern Indiana, the far northwestern corner of Ohio, and most of Michigan. Another area where we have a 5% chance of damaging wind gusts of 50 miles per hour higher today covers much of the panhandle of West Virginia, northeastern Virginia, Washington, D.C., all of Maryland, all of Delaware, southwestern and far southeastern Pennsylvania, most of New Jersey, eastern New York State, which includes New York City and Long Island, western Connecticut, western Massachusetts, all of Vermont, all of New Hampshire, and southwestern Maine. Going to the hail for today, we have a 30% chance of hail of 1 inch in diameter or larger today that covers central and eastern South Dakota, far north central Nebraska, far northwestern Iowa, and parts of the southern half of Minnesota. Now the black dashed area encompasses central and eastern South Dakota and southwestern Minnesota. The black dashed area is where we have a 10% chance of seeing hail of 2 inches in diameter or larger. And we have two areas where we have a 15% chance of hail of 1 inch in diameter or larger today. One that covers northeastern Wyoming, parts of South Dakota, northern Nebraska, far northwestern Iowa, parts of Minnesota, and northwestern Wisconsin. Another 15% chance of hail of 1 inch in diameter or larger today covers far southeastern New Hampshire, the eastern half of Massachusetts, the eastern half of Connecticut, and all of Rhode Island. And we have two areas where we have a 5% chance of hail of 1 inch in diameter or larger today. One that covers southeastern Montana, most of Wyoming, northeastern Colorado, most of Nebraska, northwestern South Dakota, southeastern North Dakota, northern Iowa, northern Minnesota, most of Wisconsin, and western panhandle of upper Michigan. And another 5% hail risk area today covers most of New Jersey, eastern New York State, including New York City and Long Island, western Connecticut, western and southeastern Massachusetts, all of Vermont, all of New Hampshire, and southwestern Maine. And the summary for today says severe storms are expected to evolve within the zone, extending from the northern and central high plains eastward to Wisconsin this afternoon into tonight. Isolated to very large hail, a few tornadoes, and swaths of severe, potentially damaging gusts are expected, especially across South Dakota into Minnesota. A few severe storms producing strong gusts and hail are also expected across southern New England, so I will have a separate video on the Day 2 Outlook, which will come out very soon, so stay tuned for the Day 2 Outlook, which will come out very soon.